Bonjour French 2 students. Here is your teaching video for lesson 14b, pages 208 to 210 in your book. S'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos livres à la page 208. B. La préposition a plus l'article défini. The preposition a has several meanings. So a can mean in. For example, Patrick habite à Paris. A can mean at. Nous sommes à la piscine. And a can mean to. Est-ce que tu vas à Toulouse? Now, remember your definite articles. So you have learned your definite articles before. That was back in French 1. And remember, these are the ones that mean the. And so remember, you have a masculine form. You have a masculine form, a feminine form, a singular form, and a plural form. And the masculine singular definite article is le, the feminine is la, and the plurals were les. And then remember that le and la became L apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. So these are the articles that we're talking about. Okay. So when we have an a followed by one of these definite articles, le, la, les, or the L apostrophe, we have to form a contraction. And a difference between an English contraction and a French contraction. In English, contractions are optional. So you can say can't or cannot. But in French, contractions are not optional. Okay? You have to use these contractions. So it says, note the forms of a plus the definite article in the sentences below. Voici le café. Mark a au café. Okay. Corinne va au café. Voici les Champs-Élysées. Tu es aux Champs-Élysées. Je vais aux Champs-Élysées. Voici la piscine. Elle est à la piscine. Eric va à la piscine. Voici l'hôtel. Je suis à l'hôtel. Vous allez à l'hôtel. So notice, I would have had an a and a le together here. And in these sentences, I would have had an a and a le. And so anytime, and you see that kind of down here, anytime I have an a and a le in a sentence together, I have to change it to o. Anytime I have an a and a le in a sentence together, I have to change it to an o with an X on it. Notice there's no change to a la, and there's no change to a L apostrophe. So what are these sentences saying? So we have, here is the cafe. Mark is at the cafe or in the cafe. Corinne is going to the cafe. Here's the Champs-Élysées. You are at the Champs-Élysées. I am going to the Champs-Élysées. Here's the pool. Anne is at the pool or in the pool. Eric is going to the pool. Voici l'hôtel. So here's the hotel. I am at the hotel or I am in the hotel. You are going to the hotel. So the preposition a contracts with le and le, but not with la and l'apostrophe. S'il vous plaît, répétez o, 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 a la, a l'apostrophe, a l'apostrophe. So saying these over here. S'il vous plaît, répétez au cinéma, à la piscine, aux Champs-Élysées, à l'école. There is liaison after O when the next word begins with a vowel sound, in which case you're going to hear that X as a Z. Le professeur parle aux élèves, je téléphone aux amis de Claire. So this first sentence here is saying that the teacher is talking to the students, and the second one is saying, I'm calling to Claire's friends. So just kind of a little reminder about the vocabulary you've learned so far, right? This first column here, we know these are all masculine adjectives. Remember, an en tells us that it's masculine. This means a or an. If I want to make it the, I'm going to change the en to the le. Okay? And so for all of these, if I want to say to the museum or in the museum, because museum is masculine, it's going to be au musée. So for all of these here, they're going to form this O contraction. Over here, this other column, these are these un ones, which are feminine. Again, un means a or an. For the definite article, it would be the. And so for all of these, if I want to say to the, it's going to be, like, for example, to the pool, it's going to be à la piscine. Now, again, remember, le and la both become l'apostrophe before that vowel. So, for example, école, although it's feminine, it's going to be à l'école. And over here with un hôpital, because hôpital is a silent H, it'd be à l'hôpital. Okay, so s'il vous plaît, répétez un boulevard, un café, un centre commercial, un cinéma, un hôpital, un hôtel, un magasin, un musée, un parc, un quartier, un restaurant, un stade, un supermarché, un théâtre, un village, une adresse, une avenue, une bibliothèque, une école, une église, une piscine, une plage, une rue, une ville. And this is all vocabulary that you learned in Lesson 13. So this is all vocabulary you should know the meaning of and how to spell. In Lesson 13, you also learned vocabulary related to the house. It's still the same thing, right? All of these over here, if I'm using them with an a, then they're going to become o, because they're all masculine and would use that le. Okay? And over here, when I have an a and that la, it's going to stay a la. S'il vous plaît, répétez. Un appartement, un garage, un immeuble, un jardin, un salon, une chambre, une cuisine, une maison, une salle à manger, une salle de bain, les toilettes, un concert, un endroit, un événement, un film, un pique-nique, un rendez-vous, une boum, une fête, une soirée. So remember, the only exception to this is going to be with an a l'apostrophe before my vowels or silent H's. So let's take a look at exercise 3, exercice 3, dans la rue. Two friends meet in the street and talk about where they are going. So I'm going to ask you to do this one out loud. So again, here is our prompt, and we see the picture, and this top picture is a cafe, which is un café, and this bottom picture is a beach, which is une plage. So we see, tu vas au café? No, je vais à la plage. So the first thing you'll say is the question asking, are you going to, and whatever you see. So tu vas stays the same every time. This became o because this was un café, which would be le, and a and le have to become o. Down here, with the answer, the no je vais stays the same every time. In this case, it was à la because it was un, so it's a and la. So, in number 1, you have a picture of a stadium and a pool. So go ahead and say those 2 lines. Remember, if you need more time than what I'm giving you, you can pause the recording. So you should have had, tu vas au stade? No, je vais à la piscine. In number 2, you have a movie theater, and then like actual performance theater. Tu vas au cinéma? No, je vais au théâtre. Numéro 3, you have a hotel and a supermarket. Tu vas à l'hôtel? No, je vais au supermarché. Numéro 4, you have a library and a museum. Tu vas à la bibliothèque? No, je vais au musée. And number 5, you have a school and a park. Tu vas à l'école? No, je vais au parc. Let's take a look at exercise 6. Où vont-ils? Say where the following people are going according to what they like to do. So in this one, the prompt is giving me information so that I can choose one of these. Okay? And again, if I have a le, it's going to become an o. And if I have a la, it's going to stay a la. So our example here, we have il va à la discothèque, because we have Daniel aime danser, which means Daniel likes to dance. So if he likes to dance, of the choices here, he's going to go to a discothèque, which is like a dance club. So it becomes il va à la discothèque. Now notice that in all of these, okay, we just have one person as our subject. So realistically, the va isn't going to change. That will stay the same. And all of your sentences are either going to start il if it's a boy, or elle if it's a girl, va, and then again either au for o, or a la if it's a la. So again, I'm going to ask you to do these out loud. Number 1, we have Corinne aime l'art moderne. Corinne va au musée. 2. Jean-François aime manger. Il va au restaurant. 3. Delphine aime les westerns. Elle va au cinéma. Numéro 4. Marina aime nager. Elle va à la piscine. Numéro 5. Eric aime regarder les magazines. Il va à la bibliothèque. 6. Denise aime faire des promenades. Elle va au parc. 7. Philippe aime la musique. Il va au concert. 8. Alice aime le football. Elle va au stade. 9. Cécile aime le shopping. Elle va au centre commercial. 10. Lia aime surfer sur l'Internet. Elle va au cybercafé. So next we have vocabulaire for en ville or in town. Quelques endroits et quelques événements où aller. So some places and some things where you might go. So s'il vous plaît, répétez un endroit, un endroit, un événement, un événement, un concert, un concert, un film, un film, un match, un match, un pique-nique, un pique-nique, un rendez-vous, un rendez-vous, une boom, une boom, une fête, une fête, une soirée, une soirée. You'll also see some new vocabulary for verbs. So we have arriver, rentrer, and rester. These are all regular ER verbs, which means you should know how to conjugate them because they follow that pattern. Remember that pattern was we start with our infinitive, which is this form that they give you here. We take off our ER, which gives us our stem. And to the stem we add, depending upon the subject. Right? For je, we add an E. For tu, we add an ES. For il or elle, singular, we add an E. For nous, we add ONS. For vous, we add EZ. And for il and elle pluriel, we add ENT. So they follow that pattern. So, s'il vous plaît, répétez arriver, arriver, j'arrive à l'école à 9 heures. Rentrer, rentrer, à quelle heure rentres-tu à la maison? Rester, rester, les touristes restent à l'hôtel. And then we have some expressions. S'il vous plaît, répétez à pied, à pied, à vélo, en voiture, en voiture, en bus, en bus, en train, en train, en métro, en métro, en taxi, en taxi. And then you've seen faire une promenade before, but now you can kind of specify how you're going for a walk or taking a ride. So, s'il vous plaît, répétez faire une promenade à pied, faire une promenade à vélo, faire une promenade en voiture. So, that makes it a good time to remember how to actually conjugate, right? We kind of just went over the pattern. So now I'd like you to practice conjugating these verbs. So on a piece of paper, it can be a scrap piece of paper, make these conjugation charts, right? Remember, this is called a conjugation chart. So there's 2 conjugation charts here. Okay? And see if you can conjugate these verbs, because that is kind of good practice. Again, if you need more time than what I give you, you can pause, okay, the video and go ahead and do this. So arriver means to arrive. And it's j'arrive. So I have to get rid of this the E and make it apostrophe. A-R-R-I-V, that's my stem, I add an E, right? So this stem is going to be in all my forms. So A-R-R-I-V, we add an E-S. A-R-R-I-V, we add an E. A-R-R-I-V, we add an O-N-S. A-R-R-I-V, we add an E-Z. And A-R-R-I-V, we add an E-N-T. Now, this is also a good time to remind you about pronunciation of these. Remember, there are only 3 pronunciations for these. So the verbs, which are the words in green, the verbs in the boot all sound the same. The infinitive and the vous form sound the same. So that makes a total of 3 pronunciations. S'il vous plaît, répétez arriver, j'arrive, tu arrives, il arrive, nous arrivons, vous arrivez, elles arrivent. And because arrive starts with a vowel, remember we're going to hear these S's as Z's because arrive starts with an A. So now go ahead and do the same thing for the verb rentrer. So rentrer means to go back or come back. And again, here's my stem that's going to be in all the forms of my verb. And again, I'm adding my ending depending upon what my subject is. So remember, when my subject is je, I'm adding an E. When my subject is tu, I'm adding an ES. And when my subject is il or el singular, I'm adding an E to my stem. And again, when my subject is nous, I'm adding to my stem an ONS. When my subject is vous, I'm adding an EZ. And when my subject is il or el pluriel, I'm adding an ENT. S'il vous plaît, répétez rentrer, je rentre, tu rentres, elle rentre, nous rentrons, vous rentrez, ils rentrent. All right, 2 more verbs to go. So rester means to stay. Again, my stem is the R-E-S-T, so that's going to be in all forms. I add an E for je, an ES for tu, an E for il or el singular, an ONS for nous, an EZ for vous, and an ENT for il or el pluriel. S'il vous plaît, répétez rester, je reste, tu restes, il reste, nous restons, vous restez, Elle reste. Lastly, we have the verb faire. Now remember, this was an irregular verb that you've learned previously, which means you had to memorize the verb forms. So now is a good time to make sure you remember the verb forms. Faire means to do or to make. So we have fait, fait, fait. Sorry, I had a sneeze. Faisons, fait, and font. So, s'il vous plaît, répétez faire, je fais, tu fais, il fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font. So that provides a nice review here as we're kind of getting started in French 2A of how to conjugate regular ER verbs like rester and arriver and rentrer and the many, many other regular ER verbs you've already learned. And a reminder of the irregular verb faire that you also have already learned. So that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Again, homework number 4 is page 209, exercise 6. We did this one out loud. What you're going to do for your homework is write out these sentences. So remember, your sentences are going to start with il or elle, va, and then again you have to use one of these contractions. So if you have an a and a le together, you need to change it to o. If you have an a and a la together, you're going to leave it a la. Remember, all homework assignments are being submitted in Google Classroom. Remember that on your lesson quizzes and vocabulary quizzes and unit tests, you will have to type your answers into a Google form. So I really would encourage you very strongly to consider typing your homework assignments in Google Docs using the international keyboard you have installed on your Chromebook so that you start to learn how to make those accent marks. Remember, you have a cheat sheet on the PDF that's in your international keyboard material in your classwork page. Au revoir. À demain.